Well, we have put forward some ideas to the European Union as part of our negotiations. Naturally, you wouldn't expect me to say what they are, but we've made very clear what the outline is of our interest, that we don't want there to be a hard border, but the United Kingdom is going to be leaving the customs union and the single market. We've always actually had exceptions for Ireland, whether it's in our voting rights, our rights of residence in the UK. We've always accepted a certain asymmetry, and that will have to be part of whatever agreement we come to with the European Union. But we can't get a final answer to the Irish question until we get an idea of the end state. And until we get into discussions with the European Union on the end state, that will be very difficult. So the quicker that we can do that, the better. And we're still in the position where the European Union doesn't want to do that. And we're getting quite close now to 2018, when we'll be talking about next year when we leave the European Union. So for all the reasons, international as well as European, I think we have to get there faster than we're doing at the present time.
But in terms of your role within this whole Brexit process, you're travelling the world, I think 33 countries at last count, racking up the air miles, looking for those all-important free trade agreements, at the same time as saying that you're, I think it's fair to say, relatively sanguine that if there is no deal with the European Union ahead of our leaving, we would revert to WTO rules.
Well, of course, it's not just me. If you look at what the Director General of the World Trade Organization is saying, there wouldn't be the end of the world, in his words, for the UK. Of course, we would rather get a deal with the European Union, but we're not afraid not to get a deal. The thing is that it's in the interest of both the UK and the EU to reach such an agreement, not just in our domestic sense, but from a global perspective. And when you come to the other side of the world, as we are now, they're looking to Europe as a whole to say whether Europe will become more protectionist, whether there will be impediments to trade and investment in Europe that don't exist today, and that wouldn't be attractive for global investors. So it's in all our interest to come to a deal that is an open and liberal agreement on trade between Britain and the European Union. If we didn't get it, of course, we could trade on WTO terms. We do that on a large proportion of our trade already, for example, with the United States. So it's possible, but it's not the outcome that we would rather have.
But surely any deal with the European Union in terms of trade that they would agree to would involve, at a minimum, sticking to the standards that they've been setting over the past, however many decades.
Well, we wouldn't want to see our standards reduced because, in particular, if you're selling UK goods abroad, people look to us to have very high standards of safety, or of clarity about origin and so on. And we would want to keep that because the UK is never going to be able to compete at the cheap end of the market. We're always going to have to compete at the quality end of the market, and that's a plus for the UK, and that's something that we should be very proud of. That people want to buy UK goods and services because they regard having a Union Jack on it as a sign of quality. That's not something that we would want to diminish, nor do I think our consumers would allow us to do so. And I think that in any future trade agreements, consumers will have a lot more to say about how the parameters within which these are set than they have done in the past.
But there are other countries, aren't there, who see Brexit as an opportunity for us and for them precisely because we can fiddle with standards. The United States, key amongst them, of course. I mean, I'm going to mention two words that you have not liked in the past: chlorinated chicken. I mean, clearly the United States would wish us to relax standards in certain areas that the European Union would not.
Well, we wouldn't be willing to reduce standards if we didn't think that was good for the UK either as a seller of goods or for UK consumers. And people talk about trade agreements as though it's something that's enforced upon us. We would only come to an agreement if we thought it was the interests of both parties. And that's what negotiations are all about. So this idea that it's something that will be forced on Britain against Britain's will simply is too wide of the mark.